Hello and welcome to the Watchful Citizen. I'm your host for today's show. My name is Joshua Cramer, and we have with us two guests who are volunteering their time to have a discussion with us today about the election of Barack Obama and anything else that might occur interesting to us. I have Dr. Jeannette Jones and Dr. Patrick Jones, both who are assistant professors of history and ethnic studies. So thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Why don't you start out by telling our viewers just a little bit about yourselves, and I guess Patrick, we'll start with you, kind of where you came from, where your home is, and how you got to Nebraska, and how you got to be an assistant professor.
Sure. Well, I was born in Baltimore and grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and I did my graduate work at the University of Wisconsin, where I got a PhD in 20th century U.S. history and African American studies, and I taught at Allegheny College, a small liberal arts college in Pennsylvania, before joining the faculty in history and ethnic studies here at UNL.
Okay. And Jeannette, how about you?
I was born in Queens, New York, and raised in Long Island, New York, and I attended graduate school at the State University of New York at Buffalo, and I specialize in U.S. cultural history with a minor in African American history, and I came to the University of Nebraska in fall of 2004 as an assistant professor.
Well, thank you. I think anybody who's worked with you in community groups like I have would say that each of you has been a great benefit to our community. So
thank you.
We're glad that you're here. Well, this is a very exciting time in our nation. We just had the election of Barack Obama. He's the president-elect. I was in church this morning, and we, in the intercessory prayers, they brought up President-elect Barack, and I really like the sound of that. You are on the Lancaster County Democrats TV show, so just so you know, there might be some Democrats watching the show. There also might be some independents or Republicans watching the show as well. Well, Jeannette, let's start with you. What does it mean? We elected Barack Obama. There's a lot of firsts here.
There's a lot of firsts, yeah. I mean, first of all, I think, growing up in New York as an African American girl, whose parents were from both the city and from the South. My mom was originally from Virginia, and then she came to New York, and my dad was always raised in New York. That I didn't think this day would ever come, and I really mean that. People, when you say that, people say, really? I'm like, yeah. I mean, I had grandparents that were sharecroppers and, all kinds of, traveling laborers and Pullman porters, and I didn't think that America was ready for an African American to be president of the United States. And when he spoke at the 2004 convention, I thought, okay, this is presidential material, but would we as a nation be ready? And then when he ran against Hillary, who was my senator for, years when I was in New York, I said, oh, wait a minute. And then I really started to see that this was someone that the nation could get behind. If he had the right message, if he had the right people around him, and if he built a broad coalition of supporters. And so I was just first speechless when the night came and they actually said he's the president-elect. But then I also was humbled because I thought this would happen. My parents and unfortunately my grandparents didn't live to see this day, so it's just a humbling experience for me.
Well, Jeannette, I have to ask just a quick follow-up question. Will you share with us in the primary, were you a fan of Hillary at that point, or were you a supporter of Barack?
You know what, I was in Germany at the time, and I was on the fence because my family was divided, and I think it was more of a generational thing where the older generation was kind of allied with the Jesse Jacksons and that era, and some people were saying, well, we know Hillary, she was our senator, we don't really know Barack. But when it came down to the primary, I did vote for Barack Obama because I felt that, I had voted for Hillary before. I had faith in her for the position as senator of New York State, but I thought, she's part of the old guard. I mean, I didn't think she didn't belong in the administration or even in Congress, but I just thought maybe it's someone else's turn to take the country in a new direction. And so it was a hard vote for me because I had supported her in New York, but I decided to go with Barack Obama.
Patrick, what's your reaction to the election of Barack Obama?
Yeah, well, there's no doubt it's a profound achievement, and one that I think we should all take pause and really reflect on before we get into the policy and the politics and the things that divide us in terms of partisan issues, that this is a monumental achievement for our nation, not just for African Americans, for all folks in our nation. And that, just a cursory understanding of our tragic history of race and African American experience would indicate the great achievement of this. And I don't think, and so in that regard, it's crucially important that we have an African American head of state. It's important domestically in so many ways, and the achievement that represents, and the struggle that it took to get here. Again, we're talking a centuries-long struggle, that this represents one kind of success and achievement. So, but not all success and achievement. We are not at racial justice, I would say, with the election of Barack Obama. But we need to have reverence for this moment and really reflect seriously and have discussion about what that means. At the same time, and there are particular political aspects of this election that are significant, maybe we can get into, but I would just say right now in a general way that this means something, but not everything. And so it does represent something that our nation did elect an African American and got beyond certain elements of our tragic past, and just the way our politics has worked, particularly in recent years, with race being a very divisive, animating piece of that. At the same time, we have very deep racialized inequality that needs to be addressed, and we have a danger in the election of an African American president, particularly among whites, I think, of thinking we have reached the promised land, or that socially, publicly, we no longer have a social responsibility to act to address and ameliorate these persistent racial inequalities in our society. For instance, I live in Omaha. We have the third poorest African American community in North Omaha in the country. We have the poorest community for black children in the country. 60% of black children in North Omaha grow up in poverty. Now, this is shameful, and this was not an issue in the last election at the national or the local level. We had a vigorous Senate campaign, a very vigorous congressional campaign in Omaha. That wasn't anywhere to be seen rhetorically. We need to address these enduring chasms of race, of caste and class. And so there is also a danger, particularly among whites, where you want to pat yourself on the back. There's all kinds of psychological stuff going on here too, with white guilt and things. And this plays on the liberal side and the conservative side of this white spectrum too. So there is a pitfall. So I would say simply that it's something, and we have to have profound respect and pause for what it is. But we also have to understand and keep it in perspective that this is not everything as well.